Okay, so today we're going to study metrics for diverse suppliers. So the task is to design, deploy, maintain, and report metrics to measure the performance of diverse suppliers throughout the sourcing process. So what gets measured gets done. Externally driven metrics are often driven by various laws and regulations and involve a specific format for record keeping. Final customers may also want reporting on the use of diverse suppliers, especially if they're in a consumer products industry or service. Internally driven metrics, those that track the spend with diverse suppliers where data is used for internal management reporting, usually involves measurement to pre-existing organizational goals. Compliance metrics specific to the supplier diversity program should be developed. And typically, metrics used in supplier diversity programs include things like percentage increase in total spend with diverse suppliers, percentage increase in spend by category with diverse suppliers, total number of diverse suppliers, number of diverse suppliers by industry, increase in number of key diverse suppliers, however you define key. And after collecting data, the results should be compared to goals and objectives of the program to see if training is on target. Regulatory requirements for records management. Metrics measure performance against established standards and serve as a tool for reporting compliance with those standards. And the combined standards, regulatory and organizational, dictate the data that must be gathered and compiled. Different statutes and regulations impose various holding periods for record retention. And organizational policies provide for periodic destruction of records. So these policies should be tied to statutory or regulatory requirements for the retention, whichever one says you got to hold them the longest, that's what your policy needs to be. Records can be used to research information and reference, but can also be used to show compliance to various regulatory requirements or be evidence in a lawsuit. Record retention policy questions. So the following questions can help determine a record retention policy. How often the record's referenced? What are the costs of holding records? Who in terms of position should have access? What should the records, where should the records or how should the records be stored? Electronic or paper? What are the relevant legal requirements for the organization? What are the contractual obligations must be considered? And what does the organization need for its annual report? So supplier management professionals of international corporations should understand the laws and regulations of the countries in which the organization does business because they will differ. Organizational financial reporting policies and requirements. A strong financial reporting structure includes the establishment of internal controls brought to you by our buddies at Enron and the SOX legislation of 2002. That's in the US anyway. Internal controls are designed to provide reasonable assurance regarding these objectives. Effectiveness and efficiency of operation, reliability of financial reporting, and compliance with applicable laws and regulations. So supply management will be the process owner for supplier diversity program results and will need to report to management that the controls are designed appropriately and effectively. There is a trend towards financial transparency, meaning that an organization's financial statements must be understandable to members of the general public. So software and tools, creation of measurements, a supply management professional must create, report, archive, evaluate, and revise the organizational metrics that will achieve the corporate objectives for a supplier diversity program. Management needs to put into place a system that ensures the processes are controlled and in compliance. Audit processes. So audit committees generally serve two missions with the board of directors. So we're talking about the board of directors here. Monitoring that appropriate accounting policies and internal controls are used and encouraging frank dialogue between the board and the external auditors. So it's the board of directors audit committee that appoints who's going to do the auditing of the corporation's financial statements. The scope of an audit can cover the maintenance of records, compliance with policy, or the evaluation of functional process efficiency and effectiveness. Most large organizations develop a system of regular peer audits, which are then followed by internal audits by the internal audit function. So most large companies have an internal audit group who's unconnected person that comes down and inspects the supply chain management group. But you can also have the materials group come inspect supply chain management group, or somebody from some other group as a peer audit. Or you can have one commodity manager inspect another commodity manager as a peer audit. Audits are used to identify strengths, weaknesses, and develop a plan. So there's also the validation process. So a validation process implies that a solution, process, or expenditure is correct and compliant with some set standard. Usually relates to meeting the needs of an external or internal customer. Internal and external stakeholder reporting requirements. So there's something called remediation. If deficiencies are found through established audits, either internal, external, peer, then a process improvement plan should be established to correct the defect. Often a written action plan is necessary that includes a monitoring plan. So all these plans are called remediation. That's the broad name for them. It's basically a plan to fix deficiencies. Reporting requirements, organizations must establish a management reporting system that will ensure that measurements and processes are tracked for compliance and accuracy. And then training should be an evolutionary model. The model is constantly changing and moving forward as supply chain continues to evolve. Training on policies and procedures should extend beyond the supply management to suppliers and customers in some cases. And supply management's customers must be kept informed of new policies and procedures. Establish a system of continuous improvement for the personnel. Use the following to assist: web-based education, face-to-face classes, lessons learned, discussions, etc. And then compliance metrics. So metrics should be quantifiable in order to measure progress. To achieve compliance with procedures, a defined plan is used, which includes executive sponsorship, collaborative teams, and use of change management techniques, including communication plan, recording requirements, and automated tracking and management. So a policy is a guide for decision making. Policies are dynamic. They need to be periodically reviewed and updated. Organizational policies are established to guide behavior in the organization, and regulatory policies or mandates limit the discretion of the individual. This is the government. Many organizations establish policies about purchasing from a diverse supplier base. And diverse supplier may include any of the following, but really it's the organization that needs to define what it considers to be a diverse supplier. You can use somebody else's definition, the governments or a number of nonprofits, but you need to, in a policy, say this is what we consider to be a diverse supplier. So a diversity manager wants to align the annual diverse spend goals with the organization's strategic financial metrics. Which of the following represents the most appropriate approach? Align the annual diverse spend goals with the strategic financial metrics. So send diversity specialists to finance courses. Yeah, that's probably not a good idea. Identify the metric with the greatest impact. Maybe. Base diverse spend goals on the organizational objectives. Always the answer. Report on diverse spend history. Yeah, partially. It's got to be C. And C it is. Which of the following is not a fundamental purpose for conducting an internal audit? To provide information on the health of operations? No, that would be. To provide measurements against agreed upon requirements? That would also be. To assess the adequacy of management controls? That would also be. and to evaluate the appropriateness of sourcing decisions. That would not be a fundamental purpose of an internal audit. It is. All right. Do some summary here. Someone with supply management should be designated as the process owner for supplier diversity program results. Creating meaningful metrics is important for the achievement of supplier diversity program. This can be challenging because there is not one set or collection of metrics that work for all supply management organizations. It's got to be tailored to your organization. Validation implies a supply management professional can substantiate that a process is compliant with the set standards. And some organizations use growth in diverse supplier markets for their end products and services as part of the foundation for setting supplier diversity program policies. They believe it is a sound business practice to maintain business growth by purchasing from diverse markets. All right, let's go pick up some questions. J1. We got a ton of questions to get through. All right, let's start working through them. We'll go over answers in a minute. Well, a few minutes. All right, 28 questions. Let's go get some answers here. All right, number 1 is Delta, 2 is Charlie, 3 is Charlie, 4 is Alpha, 5 is Delta, 6 is Bravo, 7 is Alpha, 8 is Bravo, 9 is Charlie, 10 is Bravo, 11 is also Bravo, 12 is Charlie, 13 is delta. 14 is also delta. 15 is Bravo. 16 is Charlie. 17 is delta. 18 is also delta. 19 is also delta. 20 is alpha. 21 is also alpha. 22 is Bravo. 23 is Charlie. 24 is delta. 25 is alpha. 26 is delta. 7 is alpha. And 28 is Bravo. All right, next we tackle J2 tomorrow.